These are the steps you need to take to get into cybersecurity in 2023. Hi, my name is Sandra, and I currently work as a cybersecurity analyst, and I'm passionate about helping people get into cybersecurity and start their careers in tech. And hopefully the tips I share today that I've used to help get my foot in the door in cybersecurity roles can help you as well. Because the first thing I want to start with is also probably the most important thing, and this is the one that I tell everyone, is to study for a certification. Now, I know not everyone is very interested in studying, including myself, and trust me, especially if you've been out of school, it can be really hard to pick up that textbook and learn about cybersecurity, especially from scratch if you don't have any prior background. But I really think that getting a certification is going to 10x your odds of getting that first job in cybersecurity. The cybersecurity certification that I studied for was the CompTIA Security Plus. That is probably the most popular certification for cybersecurity beginners out there. It's not required to follow any specific programs. Basically, there's no barrier to entry to take and pass the certification outside of you taking the time to study for it and pass it. I took my Security Plus certification when I was about a year into my first cybersecurity job in my cybersecurity rotational program. As a little bit of background, I graduated from college with my bachelor's degree in information science and technology, so IT, and I really had no cybersecurity background. So the Security Plus was what gave me the foundational knowledge to be able to then prepare for cybersecurity interviews, to then be able to know what areas of cybersecurity there actually are and what areas I would actually be interested in. Because believe me, it's a lot more broad than you think, especially if the only background that you have is just from TV shows and movies talking about what hackers are, and they're just typing away at the keyboard. 3 seconds later, they're in. Yeah, 99% of cybersecurity is not going to be like that. If you don't want to study for the CompTIA Security Plus, for whatever reason, there are other cybersecurity certifications for beginners out there. I actually have a video on the best cybersecurity certifications to help you get that first job, linked in my description below if you guys want to check that out. But I will say that CompTIA and GIAC are the two organizations that have the most popular beginner certifications for cybersecurity. So I would definitely recommend to stick to those two organizations when you're looking for what certification you want to go for. But again, Security Plus is a very popular one. If you want to go for one that is a little less in-depth or a little bit more beginner, then I would go for the CompTIA A+ instead. Or even if you prefer the GIAC GSEC certification. The next thing to get on your resume is cybersecurity projects. Now, personally, when I just got started in cybersecurity, obviously I had no background, and I was just really lucky to be able to get into a cybersecurity rotation program where I learned a lot of things on the job. But I know it's not always going to be that easy, and I would say while you're studying for your CompTIA Security Plus or whatever certification that you want to go for, I would also then go and look for 2 or 3 cybersecurity projects to actively work on. Josh Radicor actually has a video on a few cybersecurity projects that he's talked about, so I would recommend watching that video and getting hands-on with some of those projects. I'm currently working on a video on top cybersecurity projects to work on as a beginner, and that video is to be announced. But I really think that cybersecurity project is one of the best things to be able to prove that you have this experience using a specific tool, or maybe using a specific platform, or even just using a specific set of skills. For example, this may not be at a scale of a project, but if you complete, let's say, a Try Hack Me challenge, or maybe if you complete a beginner CTF or capture the flag, then these are definitely things that you want to add onto your resume and be able to show that, hey, I use XYZ skills, I use XYZ tools, I was able to learn ABC. Maybe you were able to work on a team during a capture the flag, which also shows some of your teamwork skills, because trust me, interpersonal skills are also very important in cybersecurity, considering all the stakeholders that you have. Essentially, everyone is your stakeholder when you're working in cybersecurity, whether it's internal users or external users. Anytime you learn a new cybersecurity skill or cybersecurity tool, always be sure to update your resume, update your cover letter. I actually have my resume and cover letter templates linked in my description below in my digital product site, and including keywords of the actual tools that you use is going to be just as important as all the other stuff that you do, because even if you're doing all this work on the back end, if you're not showing it to the employer, or at least letting them know and portraying your skills the way that you should, then they're not going to know how much of a wealth of knowledge you may be if you're not going to tell them. So I really think that while learning the skills is really important, displaying and showing, proving that you have those skills is also very, very important. And you want to be able to move forward in those rounds of interviews, because there's most likely going to be multiple rounds. You want to be able to move past that automated HR resume scanner phase, having a real recruiter look at your resume, and then having the hiring manager want to talk to you based on the projects, the skills, the tools, the experience that you have on your resume. Thirdly, this one is one that I am very passionate about, and that is applying to cybersecurity jobs on the right websites. So there's many popular job search sites out there, and the big ones that you probably hear about are Indeed, monster.com, and things like that. And while every site definitely has quality jobs, I really feel like looking for the right site for you is important. For example, when I was originally applying to jobs back when I had my LinkedIn, I applied for probably 200 to 300 jobs on LinkedIn using their quick apply button. I know other sites also have something like a quick apply, but yeah, I applied to hundreds of jobs and got 0 callbacks, 0 emails, zero anything. I didn't even get rejections, and that is the thing that I think gets to you a little bit, especially when you are focusing solely on one platform for applying to jobs. I also did probably like 50 or so of these on Indeed, also never heard back. So I really feel like the quick apply, first of all, kind of is a bait sometimes. I don't know how often people actually look at those, because a company could get thousands of applicants from the quick apply button, and while sure there may be other candidates with better credentials than you, I really don't think that a recruiter is looking through all of those resumes, especially if there's thousands, tens of thousands of them applying to one job that everyone wants to go for. Or maybe they're only looking at it for a few seconds and not really getting to the meat and bones of your resume. So outside of the quick apply, I would really recommend first starting off with your short list of companies. So this is something that I do. I have a short list of about 40 to 50 companies that I would like to work for. I've had this list in college, and obviously I have changed that list over time. For example, some of my dream companies in college I no longer would want to work for anymore. So obviously it's going to be a continuously changing list, but these are the companies that you're going to apply for every time you find yourself in the job market or looking to be in the job market. This is the list that I also first go into, and I know it can take longer of a time to go to a company specific website, look up a cybersecurity role, and apply for it on their platform, which usually is like multiple different pages. You have to enter your resume. Sometimes you can't just upload your resume. You also have to type in manually your work experience, which I don't think is very necessary at all when they already have your resume, but some companies have that in their job application process, which is tedious and very time consuming. But I really think that sometimes applying directly to a job listing on a company's website can give you a higher chance of your recruiter actually getting back to you compared to a one-click apply on LinkedIn or Indeed. So definitely something to keep in mind. It may seem convenient to you, but it probably also does to tens of thousands of other applicants, and it could kind of bury your resume under a whole bunch of other applications if the recruiter is looking for specific keywords and they already have hundreds, thousands of resumes to look through. I personally also spent a lot of my time applying to jobs directly on Google Jobs as well as on Built-in. Built-in New York, Built-in Colorado, there's a lot of built-in sites, and I believe they're originally a site for finding applicants and candidates for startup companies and smaller size companies as well as medium sized companies. But now I've seen that bigger companies, Fortune 500 and Fortune 50 companies, post their job listings on Built-in, but it still is, I think, a relatively niche website to apply for jobs in. So you may have a easier time to be seen or have your resume actually get to a recruiter or a hiring manager. I believe all the Built-in sites actually have location-based sites, but a lot of the jobs on there are also remote. So even if you apply to a job in Built-in NYC, many of the job listings on there are remote. So you don't actually have to be in New York to apply to jobs on Built-in NYC, unless you want to move to New York, which is another good option. And the next thing is going to be another very important one after you get your foot in the door, and then that is for interview prep. Interview prep is one of the key things that you want to focus on, and I really think that studying for a certification, which is the first thing I mentioned in the video, is going to be basically the bow that ties everything together. So personally, when I was studying for my certification, it took me about 3 to 4 months to fully study for it, and I don't expect anyone to study for a certification in 1 week and pass the exam. That is obviously unrealistic unless you're not planning on sleeping and you already have a cybersecurity background and maybe you don't even need to study. But for the most part, if you're a beginner, that you're just starting out from scratch, and specifically talking about the CompTIA Security Plus, even if you don't take the Security Plus, CompTIA actually has an exam objectives guide for their certification exams, and I can link down in the description. It is just a PDF document of the entire list of vocabulary or cybersecurity concepts that you'll need to know for the CompTIA Security Plus. But this also just happens to be a awesome beginner list to study to then be able to go in and pass your interview for a security analyst or an SOC analyst role. I also have my cybersecurity interview prep guide that is linked down in the description if you guys want to check that out, and that includes resources that I personally use to pass my cybersecurity interviews. I think interviews are usually the thing that gets people worried the most. I've known people who have maybe wanted to get another job but didn't want to think about the interview prep, didn't want to think about the whole interviewing process, the whole job search, because obviously it can be a very scary thing when you are being tested on your knowledge, and this is true even for people with years and years of experience in cybersecurity. So if you're just coming in, just know that it's completely normal to feel anxious or a bit nervous not knowing if you know everything that you need to know for cybersecurity interviews. And I think another reason for this is the fact that cybersecurity just has such a broad knowledge base that interviewers could poke questions from. For example, they could ask you questions on cryptography and then network security and then IAM or identity access management, and then maybe they're going into hardware encryption. there's just so many things that someone could ask you a question on during a cybersecurity interview, and especially if you're not applying to a specific role, like for example, a network engineer, then maybe your questions are more so just about networking and network security. But if you're just going for a security analyst role, there's definitely a lot more broader topics that can be covered during a cybersecurity interview. Even if it's only 30 minutes, typically cybersecurity concepts are you know it or you don't. It's really hard to kind of just figure it out like you would as a software engineer going into a coding interview, where even if you don't know one way to solve it, maybe you can find out a very brute force solution, but at least you're able to solve it and find the answer. But of course, not all brute force solutions are going to help you pass, but that is a completely separate conversation. I really recommend checking out the cybersecurity interview prep video that I made recently, which also includes the steps that I would take to pass your next cybersecurity interview. And the last thing I want to discuss is boot camps and degree programs. So I know not everyone has the time to go into a bachelor's degree or to go into an associate's degree. Nowadays, cybersecurity boot camps are becoming more and more popular, and while they are the cheaper alternative and less time-consuming alternative to a cybersecurity bachelor's degree, they can definitely still come with a hefty price tag. Some online bootcamp programs can range from a few $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars. So definitely keep that in mind if you're someone who is looking to go into a bootcamp. Just know that there is going to be a far range between the cost of the bootcamps that you go into. I have a few videos on choosing between a bootcamp versus a degree program, depending on what's right for you, as well as the best bootcamp programs for cybersecurity to get you thinking about which bootcamp that you may want to go into. One thing to note is that some bootcamp programs also help you prepare directly for a certification. For example, maybe a bootcamp is going to train you on passing your CompTIA A+ certification. And that can give you more of a reason to choose that bootcamp over another. If you're able to finish that bootcamp with a bootcamp under your belt, as well as a recognized CompTIA certification, that's likely going to be a lot more valuable to an employer versus a bootcamp that may not give you a certification. So there's definitely a lot of things to weigh out. Some bootcamps also have things like income shared agreements or payment plans or even scholarships for minority groups that are looking to get into cybersecurity. So always take a look at those programs if you qualify, and that could also be another decision maker for what program that you choose. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily required to get into cybersecurity with a cybersecurity bootcamp or a cybersecurity degree even, but I will say that it can be a little bit easier to get your foot in the door as well as to get started if you're able to follow a curriculum during a bootcamp, an associate's or bachelor's program, because you're going to have professors or peers or teaching assistants that are going to help guide you through the process, because there is definitely a lot of information on cybersecurity out there. And if you're doing it all on your own, which I do think is possible, I definitely think it can be a little bit harder because it's kind of like uncharted territory, because you're going to have to figure out the areas of learning that you have to go through. Alright, so that's it for this video. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments below, as well as anything that you would like to add. Feel free to discuss in the comments below, as well as on our Discord channel linked in the description. And if you liked this video and found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on post notifications. I post videos every Wednesdays and Sundays at 12 p.m. and hopefully I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!